Welcome back to Rust Reality Recaps. This is my second installation. We'll be focusing on Ingrid and Brian. I apologize for the sound in this one. A lot of my clips came out with no sound at all or terrible latency. So let's start with Brian.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
He's a 51-year-old paraplegic going to see his 33-year-old Brazilian girlfriend, Ingrid. She is a single mother. I really feel bad for the grooming and the manipulation that she's about to endure with this man. He told her he was independent, and we could start a counter on how many times he asks for her help. Not because he genuinely needs it, mind you, but because he wants to test her to see her willingness or her attitude towards helping. Listen, she's not a hired nurse. So even though she's not a mechanic, Ingrid starts to set up the manual controls so that Brian can operate the vehicle. She is being a real sport about setting up the car. I know he probably couldn't do that himself, so that was pretty cool. Even though there's no sound, I'll explain. Essentially, he's just praising her for her good work and telling her that he's ready to marry her yesterday, essentially. Really laying it on thick. Remember, this is their first time meeting. Afterwards, they're gonna go for a drive to the hotel, and Brian's going to start with his manipulation game that I'm pretty sure gives Ingrid and everyone else the ick. I have to go on a small tangent here because I've been working as a nurse aide for over 10 years now, and I've worked with various people in wheelchairs, seniors, and I'm a little triggered by this guy. I have had male paraplegic clients who were very manipulative and essentially grooming. They were sex pests. They make you feel sorry for them. They make you feel, sometimes they blur these lines and it's so uncomfortable. I had a client who did this with me, and he had a girlfriend. He had shown me inappropriate videos of him with past nurses, almost as if to try to influence me that there was something wrong with me for not wanting to partake in these activities. I had to quit that job. These men talk about their penises and their sex lives almost more than your average non-disabled man. While using these insecurities to manipulate you, you feel bad for them. So when I see this kind of behavior happening to someone else, it's really transparent. It's grooming. I know she's his girlfriend and not his worker, but he's already blurring those boundaries. He's gaslit her about his lying, and he makes everything about himself. He brought blue pills so he could get an erection, but we know from later that he forgot to bring an actual condom. So this is where the sex pest behavior begins. He needs her to help him take his pants off, and then he needs her to help him go to the shower. Then he wants her to know about his condom drainage and how he needs to essentially beat off and get a chub to get it on. The girl is incredibly uncomfortable, and the guy's giving her the ick. The sport, and she puts up with it. Of course, foreshadow.
Oh, God!
So I do this for a living. I've actually had to put these on, and he's not wrong that it is easier with a semi or a fully erect penis, but it's not at all necessary. Small side tangent here. It is really difficult to get them on when the penis kind of goes inverted, kind of like shrink and go innies. Think of like a broken, sunken manual shifter for a car. So the next morning, Brian is sulking and whining that he didn't get to hit the boom town, but they're gonna go on a drive before potentially going to see her son. This is where Brian decides to unload a bunch of truth bombs that he had been hiding from her over the past few years that they had been talking online. One of them being that he lied about his age by about 6 years. She thought he was 45 and he's actually 51. And watch how he gaslights her that it must be her fault that she's illiterate. We all know that he kept his fucking dating profile set at 45.
Stop it. Get some help.
He was a prior drug dealer and a drug user, and the reason that he is disabled, allegedly, his ex-wife had put a hit out on him after he treated her like garbage, and when he fought back, he got himself shot. This isn't normal information for normal people. I mean, I'm not gonna judge, but for someone like Ingrid, who seems to be relatively conservative, and she has children to look out for, this is a lot. Once again, instead of being empathetic to the fact that he hid this information and dropped it on her upon meeting, so that it's too late for her to just block him and run, but he has to make it all about himself and his feelings and his insecurities. He tries to characterize Ingrid as an ableist or someone who is prejudiced towards someone with disabilities. But we'll see later that she does throw him a bone. He just ruins it for himself. Brian wants to meet Ingrid's son, even though he's just made her tremendously uncomfortable. He really wants to wiggle his way in. He's got a checklist, don't you know? So I'm not going to go over this scene too much because it just annoyed me all around. Ingrid told him not to come over, and he pushes that boundary because he needs to see her, he needs to feel better. So the florist tells him to buy roses, which ironically ends up being her favorite, and she forgives him. Long story short, I don't care. He buys the kid a toy, and he gives the kid a toy, and that melts her heart, and she forgives him. I don't want to show the kid, so I'm just gonna move past that.